Hello and welcome to one and all. In today's class, I'll continue with the law of diminishing marginal utility. We have finished the meaning, the statement, the definition, the concepts of total and marginal utilities, the explanation of the table as well as the diagram, and also the assumptions. Still two more parts are left over. That is the limitations. So limitations in the sense that what are all the drawbacks of this law? So all the assumptions mentioned in the law, they all are not possible in the actual world. So all those assumptions happen to be the limitations. I mean, if all those conditions, if all those assumptions are not fulfilled, so the law will not operate. So that is the meaning of limitations. So basically, almost all the assumptions laid out in framing the law happen to be the limitations of that particular law. Okay. So the first limitation is we have assumed that the consumer is rational. We always assume that the consumer always acts rationally. So what is the meaning of rational consumer? That is, he always acts in such a way, he spends the money income in such a way that he tries to get maximum satisfaction or maximum welfare or maximum utility. That is always, whenever he is purchasing any good or service, he is trying to get that maximum satisfaction. And also, he is expected to have the complete market information in the sense that he is suppose if he is purchasing commodity X, what is the prevailing market price? He is expected to know what are all the market conditions, that is, what are the demand and supply conditions, and also what is the availability of alternative commodity Y, and also the market conditions and price of that particular commodity Y. So all these knowledge is supposed to have being a rational consumer. So in practical world, it is not possible, isn't it? So the first limitation is consumer is not always rational. So most of the time, his judgment might be wrong. Sometimes he might be influenced by the advertisements. Okay, maybe he wants the commodity really or genuinely, or he might not be wanting the commodity, but he might be so influenced by advertisements. So he might be, induced by that particular commodity, or sometimes he might be swayed away by emotions. So every time we cannot expect the consumer to be acting rationally. And most of the time, most of the consumers, they don't always have the perfect knowledge of the market conditions. What is the available prevailing price of the commodity? What is the demand and supply conditions of the commodity? What are all the alternative commodities, that is the substitutes or complementaries available in the market? What are all the prices of those commodities, isn't it? So it is not possible in the practical world to have the complete knowledge of all those information, isn't it? And most of the time, the consumer unawarely, so he might not be maximizing his satisfaction. So if the foremost limitation is that consumer does not act rationally always whenever he is purchasing the commodity or service. Then the next limitation is this law is not applicable. The law is not applicable to certain kind of goods. It is not applicable to durable goods. It is not applicable to indivisible goods. And it is also not applicable to complementary goods. Now, why this law is not applicable to all these kinds of goods? I mentioned to you, law of diminishing marginal utility is dealing with only one particular commodity. What is the relationship between the quantity of commodity X and the total satisfaction received by the consumer of that particular commodity X? So so we are ruling out the complementary goods because you know that complementary goods involves more than one commodity. So complementary goods it is not applicable to complementary goods. And coming to the durable goods and indivisible goods, more or less similar. Durable goods is the satisfaction of the consumer is not getting over with one use. For example, chair or table or whatever it is. If you are consuming the perishable commodities like chocolate, mangoes, any food items, so they are all perishable commodities. And your chocolate, mangoes and all, you can divide it like one chocolate, two chocolates, one orange, two orange, one mango, two mangoes. Like that, you can divide it. And also they are all not durable. So you can keep on consuming and you can keep on comparing the satisfaction received by one after another unit consumed. But it is not possible in case of durable. For example, you take the example of table. So is our satisfaction getting over with only one use? So I mentioned to you, consumption is destruction of utility. But as far as all these durable goods are concerned, their satisfaction is, we are not destroying the utility of those kind of commodities with a single use. So it is the utilities lasting over a period of time. And also those kind of commodities are not divisible. So you are using the same table, you are using the same bench, you are using the same computer, you are using the same laptop, you are using the same iPad, you are using the same mobile phone for considerable period of time. So when you are using that same commodity over a considerable period of time, it is not possible to compare the satisfaction from one unit, second unit, third unit, fourth unit, etc. So it is not applicable to all these kinds of commodities. Okay. Then the third one is the very basic assumption, cardinal measurement of utility. So in actual practice, it is impossible to measure the satisfaction derived in terms of cardinal numbers. So cardinal measurement of utility is not possible. No consumer can say that after consuming a particular commodity, I derived 10 utils of satisfaction. I derived 30 utils of satisfaction. It is impossible to measure the satisfaction in terms of numbers. Okay. Then another assumption on which the law is based is the marginal utility of money. The marginal utility of money remains constant. Is it so in actual practice? In actual practice, are we not bothered about the decrease in our pocket money? Will we keep on consuming mangoes or any commodity for that matter without any worry of decrease in our pocket money? That is not possible, isn't it? That means for over a period of time, we will start worrying about how much we are losing our pocket money. That means the marginal utility of money is not remaining constant. Initially, when your pocket is full, then with money, then your satisfaction of you don't mind spending, so you keep on consuming. But once you start spending, then the lesser the money, more the satisfaction. You have lesser and lesser amount of money, you want more and more amount of money. That is the satisfaction you will get. More of mangoes, lesser the satisfaction. Same way, lesser mangoes, more satisfaction, isn't it? The same way for money also it is applicable. For money, more money, you don't want lesser satisfaction, but less money, more satisfaction. So instead of exchanging your money for mangoes or chocolates or any other commodity, you want to keep it in the form of money itself, because whatever the commodity you are going to purchase, that is giving you lesser and lesser amount of satisfaction. So why do you want to purchase a commodity which is giving you lesser satisfaction instead of keeping in the form of money, which is going to give you more amount of satisfaction, isn't it? So the marginal utility of money is not remaining constant. So if the consumer starts giving more importance to keeping it in the form of money instead of mangoes, instead of commodity X, then he will stop purchasing. So in our example, after consuming third mango, the consumer realizes, yeah, why should I purchase more and more amount of mango? Why can't I keep in the form of money? So if he stops purchasing at the third mango, we will not be able to identify, we will not be knowing that at fifth mango he is getting the maximum satisfaction. At sixth mango, he is getting the negative satisfaction. It is not possible. In actual world, no consumer will go to that extent, isn't it? So consumer will give importance to money. That means the marginal utility of money is not remaining constant. Then next limitations on which the law is based is the law is not applicable to hobbies. Like for example, hobbies like stamp collection, coin collection, more the number of stamps you are collecting, any antiques and all you are collecting, more the satisfaction. So it is not applicable to hobbies, misers, and or any costly scarce commodity, like for example jewelry, or for goods like gold, diamond. Isn't it? More amount of diamond you are discovering, more amount of diamonds you are purchasing, more the satisfaction. So for these kind of cases, the law is not going to be applicable. Of course, you can counter argue how many stamps. You don't want the same stamp again, and you want different varieties of stamps. So, but still, more the different varieties of stamps, more number of stamps, you are getting the satisfaction. Okay. Then the next limitation is, we are assume the taste and preferences of the consumers remaining constant. That means what I mentioned to you. In between, after consuming 3 or 4 mangoes, the consumer should not say that suddenly my preference is changed. Instead of mangoes, I want to purchase oranges or apples. So we are assuming that consumer preferences is only for mango. But the consumer's taste and preferences might, you can't expect the consumer to consume only mango. Every consumer wants to consume different varieties of fruit, different varieties of commodities, isn't it? So the taste and preferences of the consumer is not remaining constant. The tastes and preferences of the consumers do not remain constant. In that, these are all practically all these are not possible. And hobbies, you can say people who are listening to music. So they're all more amount of music they are listening, they will, they're more pleasure they will get. Okay. So in all these cases, the law will not operate. Okay. So these are all the limitations. Still, you can question that in spite of all these limitations, why the law is so important. So these are all only the base we are giving. The economy is trying to provide the base that through which the behavior of the consumer can be evaluated. In spite of all these limitations, I don't think anyone can deny that more the consumption of a particular commodity, lesser the satisfaction. So everyone, it is a universal behavior, isn't it? It is applicable to each and every one of us. So in spite of all these limitations, that phenomena of the human behavior is correct, isn't it? So based on that, so many other importances, usefulness are there in the practical world. So let us see, in spite of all these limitations, what are all the practical applicability or the usefulness of this particular law. Okay. So that is the importance of the law of diminishing marginal utility. So the first importance is, this law, it is the basic law of consumption, the foremost law of consumption, Gauss's first law of consumption. Remember, all the other laws of consumption are based on the law of diminishing marginal utility. So there are other laws in economics known as the law of equi-marginal utility, which the next topics you will come across. So these are all the other laws of consumption. Law of equi-marginal utility, the law of demand, consumer surplus. There are so many other laws of consumption are there. So which are trying to provide some information to the consumer. So all those other laws of consumption are all based on this first law, that is the law of diminishing marginal utility. So it is the basic law of consumption. Then the second importance is, this law, it explains what is called as the the theory of value. So the theory of value is nothing but, what is value? Value of a commodity. So the value of a commodity is nothing but which is expressed in terms of money. Whatever the price we are paying to a particular commodity is nothing but the value of that particular commodity. So this, or in other words, theory of value is nothing but this theory of value is determination of price. How the price of each and every commodity is being determined, commodity or service is being determined. Determination of price. Now, what I already mentioned to you, price actually, if the demand for a commodity is more than supply, then automatically the price will increase. The price will be more for a particular commodity if the demand is more. Alternatively, if the supply is more than demand, then the price will decrease. Okay. Now, actually, if the supply, let us take from this, if the supply is more means what? The quantity. The quantity is more, that leads to lesser satisfaction. Isn't it? We have seen if the quantity is more, the marginal utility. So the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. So when the marginal utility keeps on decreasing, automatically there will be lesser demand. The consumer will not demand. If he is getting lesser and lesser amount of satisfaction, why the consumer will buy more amount of that particular commodity? So he will buy only lesser amount of commodity. So the demand will decrease. If the demand decreases, then automatically the price will increase. Okay. So everything is interrelated. If the seller knows that if the satisfaction of the consumer keeps on decreasing, when it will decrease? Only when the quantity is more. So if the quantity is more means the supply of the commodity is more than demand. So when the supply of the commodity is more than demand, the consumer satisfaction keeps on decreasing. So the seller will not get more amount of profit by charging high price. So he has to decrease the price. Okay. So that is the whole thing, is the theory of value. This is how the price changes according to the changes in demand and supply. And there is another usefulness here. And the consumer, in our example, it is just an hypothetical example I mentioned to you. In our example, the consumer keeps on consuming till the stage of negative satisfaction. But in actual practice, he will not go to that level. When he has to, we have not taken into consideration the price of the commodity, isn't it? So when he is paying price for each and every successive unit of mango he is consuming, he won't go to the extent of getting negative satisfaction. He will stop at one point where the marginal utility of commodity X is equal to price of commodity X. So this is where the consumer gets that maximum satisfaction. If the consumer stops at this point, then the consumer is getting the maximum satisfaction. The consumer is acting rationally, etc. See, for example, we have our table. In the table, the total satisfaction and the marginal satisfaction keeps on decreasing. Okay. So the total satisfaction and marginal satisfaction keeps on decreasing. For example, when the consumer, this is as per our table, when the consumer consumes the third unit. So third unit, what is happening? The total utility is 90. And the marginal utility happens to be, if you refer the table, the marginal utility is 20, isn't it? And when he consumes the fourth unit, what is happening? The total utility happens to be 100 and the marginal utility happens to be 10. Suppose, let us take here one more component here. Let us take the price. So if assume that price of mango, so the price of mango happens to be rupees 20. So that means what? Third unit also he has to pay rupees 20. When he's purchasing the fourth unit also he has to pay rupees 20. When he's from first unit also he has to pay 20 rupees, isn't it? So every successive units of mangoes he's consuming, he's purchasing, he has to keep on paying that 20 rupees. So the first unit is giving him 40 utils of satisfaction. So first unit is getting marginal utility is equal to 40. So he is paying 20 rupees. but is getting the satisfaction of 40. Equivalent, we are just indirectly measuring the satisfaction in terms of the price he is going to pay for that particular commodity. So indirectly it measures the price of the commodity. So let us assume that initially his satisfaction is 40, but is price sacrifice. Price is the sacrifice, marginal utility is the satisfaction. So the price was what he's paying is lesser than the satisfaction is getting. So okay, fine. First unit is consuming because his satisfaction is more. Second unit, when he consumes, the satisfaction is decreasing to, the marginal utility is decreasing to 30, but price happens to be still 20 only. So here also it is okay. The price is 20, but the satisfaction is more. So here also the marginal utility is greater than price. But when he consumes the third unit, so when he consumes the third unit, the marginal utility is also 20. The price of the commodity is also 20. So at this point of time, what is happening here? When he is consuming the third unit, the marginal utility of X is equal to 20. The price of X is also equal to 20. He has to stop at this point because when he consumes the fourth unit, his marginal utility is only 10. But still, he has to pay the price of rupees 20. That means what? His sacrifice happens to be more than the satisfaction. So as no consumer will be willing to do that. So this is this point when the marginal utility of commodity X is equal to price of commodity X. So this shows the optimum consumption, the ideal consumption. The consumer has to stop at third unit. So at whatever the price of the commodity, if his satisfaction, that is his additional satisfaction, equalizes that price, that unit of consumption he has to stop purchasing. So that information is provided, that knowledge is provided based on this law to the consumer. Okay. And also to the sellers also, if the seller has to increase the sales, he has to decrease the price because the marginal utility keeps on decreasing. So this kind of information will be provided based on this law. Then the next importance is the third one. It explains something called as, it explains the diamond water paradox. So diamond water paradox is, which one is more useful to us in the day-to-day life? Water is, isn't it? Water is more useful to us. But are we willing to pay any price for water? No. But even though diamond is not useful to us, we are all willing to pay more amount of price to diamond. So this is a paradox. Actually, how it should be, the commodity which is very, very useful to us in the day-to-day life. For that, we should be willing to pay more amount of price. But instead, in the actual practice, what is happening? Diamond is not at all useful to us, but still we are willing to pay more amount of price for diamond. This is a paradox. Paradox means what? Something unexplainable. Why people are behaving in that way? Even though diamond is not useful to us, we are willing to pay more amount of price. Water is very, very essential for our survival. Still, we are not willing to pay any price for that. So this is something unexplainable. That is what is called as diamond water paradox. Now, this law explains why that paradox is happening. Because the reason is diamond is scarce. All of us know. So diamond is scarce. Hence, the marginal utility is very high. Every additional piece of diamond discovered, it is very rare, isn't it? It's very, very precious. So additional satisfaction is more. So because of its scarcity, or in other words, the marginal, just now I told you, marginal utility is equal to price. Price is nothing but the exchange value. So marginal utility is high, and also its price or exchange value. The reason is scarcity. Okay. So that's why, even though diamond, the total utility is very less. The total satisfaction what we are getting is very less compared to the marginal satisfaction, even though the total utility is less. But whereas when you take all this is happening because this is scarce in supply. But whereas in case of water, total utility is very high, but there is no additional satisfaction in water. So the marginal utility is very low. So I told you marginal utility must be equal to price. If the marginal utility is very low for water, the price is also low. So this is the diamond water paradox. So why we are paying more price to diamond and why we are not willing to pay any price to water. So this is explained through total and marginal utility, which is based on the law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay. Then the next importance is the changes in design, packing, etc. of goods can be explained. So we made one assumption, homogeneous good. That means identical. From first mango to sixth mango, the consumer is supposed to be consuming the identical mangoes. So even if you go to the shop also, if any commodity is identical, the price should not change, isn't it? If a commodity is identical in every way, how can the seller change the price? So he cannot change the price. So how he can change the price of the commodity? Maybe he can change the design of the commodity. So instead of oval shape, you can make it a rectangle shape, isn't it? So packing, he can make so if the color changes, if the shape changes, or if the packing, for example, instead of blue color wrapper, he can put rose or pink color wrapper. Genuinely, the quality might be different. That is besides the point. Even if the quality of the commodity is the same, even if the commodity happens to be the same in every way, if the seller wants to increase the price, if the seller wants to change the price through these methods and all, he can change the price of the commodity. So as long as if it is homogeneous, as long as if the commodity remains identical, it is not possible for the seller to change the price of the commodity. So this gives an information to the seller. If he wants to change the price, if he wants to increase the price of the commodity, either he genuinely increase the quality, either he genuinely increase the size of the commodity. If he increases the size of the commodity, if he increases the quality, enhances the quality of the commodity, his cost of production will also increase. So he's not going to get any profit. So without increasing without any additional cost of production, if he wants to get more amount of profit, what he can do, he can change the design, he can change the shape, he can change the color, he can change the mode of packing. So with all this, the producer or the seller can increase the price of the commodity. So that information is provided through law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay. Then this law helps the government. So this law also this law also helps the government to formulate tax policies. So what is the connection between the law of diminishing marginal utility and the tax policies of the government? See, the sisters, one type of tax which is even followed in India is something called as the progressive system of taxation. So all of you must be knowing about income tax. Higher the tax base increases, the tax rate also increases. So that is what is known as the progressive tax. So that means what the law says, that more of a particular commodity, lesser the satisfaction. So going by the same principle, more amount of money income a person is having, lesser the satisfaction is getting. So why can't the government take it in the form of a tax and redistribute to the poorer sections of the population? So this is the practical applicability. That system of taxation is known as progressive tax. The richer people, the person who is earning more, he has to pay more amount of tax, isn't it? So more the amount of money income, lesser the satisfaction. Since the person is getting lesser satisfaction, The government is taking in the form of tax, and then the same amount of money received by the government, he is helping the government to redistribute or provide the welfare measures to the poorer sections of the population. So this is directly follows from the law of diminishing marginal utility, that is higher the amount of commodity, lesser the satisfaction. So for the government, this is applicable even to money also. Okay. So now these are all the importances of the law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay. So I mentioned to you there is a format in writing the 10 marks answer. So the first, it should be introduction, format of writing the answer, introduction, then the statement of the law, afterwards definition and illustration, that is the table, and explanation, concepts. So in that explanation, I mentioned the concepts of total utility and marginal utility. Afterwards, diagram and its explanation. And finally, assumptions, limitations, and importance. So this is the format of writing the answer. Okay. Hope this law is clear to you, because as I again and again I'm repeating, if you understand this particular law, all the other theories and other laws of economics, you will be able to understand. Okay. So if you find this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any doubts or if you have any suggestions, please don't fail to mention in the comment box. Okay. So until my next video, take care. Bye-bye.